The Washington Spirit did not just beat Kansas City 4-0. They exposed them. And I do not say that lightly. Because this was not just one of those games where a team, finishes everything and the scoreline gets a bit ugly. This was a game where Washington really, really looked like they had a clear plan, clear roles. Okay, that's important too. I haven't really seen that as much. Clear attacking patterns based off good decisions, etc. In Kansas City just looked like a team that was mired in some sort of they could not solve the pressure, could not solve the wide areas. They certainly couldn't protect the wide areas, and they could not stop the game from getting away from them. And if you watch the first 2 minutes of that match, it was sort of a back and forth, and KC had a couple of good chances even. But this was a statement for the Spirit, who had been struggling even though they got the win right before the break. They have not looked themselves at all. They've looked frustrated. And for Kansas City, though, this was a big warning sign on top of other warning signs that I don't know how long that they're going to be able to ignore. And because when you lose 4-0, sometimes you can say, oh, okay, well, the finishing was critical, not critical, but clinical against you. And maybe the scoreline was a bit harsh. It flattered the other team. Okay. But when the opponent has 17 shots, 7 on goal, and 4 go in, and the way they did, that begs a bigger question. Okay. So, this possession, I think wasn't that, unequal. I think Spirit had 57%, possession. But when you look at that stat in the bigger picture, and KC only creates, 3 shots on target yourself, that tells a bigger picture. And that tells me that, Washington controlled the rhythm and the flow of that match. And if you watched it, you can see what I'm talking about. And again, KC did have a couple moments, but for the most of it, Washington controlled the key spaces. And KC spent too much of their time really reacting. Okay, that means if you spend most of that first half just reacting in the second half as well, you're not going to come out ahead on the scoreline. And let's start with the first big, theme, Washington's pressure. Because the Spirit were not just pressing for the sake of pressing. They were pressing with purpose. And for the first time, that's what their 6th game, it actually looked like a press with a proper trigger at times. They squeezed Kansas City into areas where the Current, had to play faster than they wanted to at the moment. And they were forced into rush decisions, and they made KC's buildup really feel, I don't even know how to describe that, feel uncomfortable, I guess is the word. And when KC started playing, those loose passes or forcing direct balls, Washington was just there to collect any second ball, and a lot of times gobbling up the first ball because they were errant passes at times. And it didn't look like KC was playing the Spirit. It looked like some other team had showed up. But this is the part that matters. The pressing is not just, pressing's not just about running, okay? It has to have purpose. It has to have structure. And Washington had structure last night. Again, previously matches in this season, their pressing structure was just atrocious, and I wouldn't even call it a press. They had players close enough that together, they would win the next duel off of the press. And they had midfielders reading the second balls, anticipating more than a lot better than they'd been doing. And they had wide players ready to jump when KC, tried to escape pressure. So KC, on the other hand, looked like they had never faced a press in their entire lives. They looked so disconnected. And, this is where I'm going to get a little bit hard on KC, because this was not just Washington played well. Okay, and they did. Washington obviously played well. But KC was just literally giving Washington invitations to come beat us, okay? And there was too much space between their lines, so they were having spacing issues, because like I always say, it's usually one of 3 things that's happening, and spacing issues is always one of those 3. There's too many moments when the midfield did not protect the back line, again, spacing and timing issues, okay? Too many moments where the wide areas were just wide open. And I would say that obviously is spacing, but that looked by design, and that's a decision, okay? Those are poor decisions right there. And really, when their defensive shape too many times looked like it was reacting after the danger had already started. Let's call that ball watching, basically. And that's how a 1-0 game becomes a 2-0 game, because and that's then how a 2-0 game becomes a 3-0 game. And then after time, it's 4-0, and you're just chasing the game. You're not even chasing anymore. It's over at this point. You are chasing your own mistakes, okay? Chasing your own mistakes at that point. So now let's talk about the wide threats, because this is where Washington was absolutely destroying Kansas City. Trinity Rodman was a nightmare for them, because and not because just because she scored, which for Washington's point of view, that's great. She got her first assist and first goal of the game, the year right now. And that contract has been weighing on her, it looks like, because she has not been herself. She's been absolutely atrocious for a Trinity Rodman caliber player along the way. But she was getting the ball way she likes it, which is on the move. Spirit did not have her hugging the line, putting her, boots on it and getting chalk on them in a static position. They let her move, vertically up and down that line to get open. And she checks back. It's a short pass, checks it off, makes her move. She loves getting the ball on the move wide because she's going to torch people. KC had no answer for her quickness and speed once she gets the ball and gets her head up. They don't have anybody to match that speed. It doesn't matter who was tracking her. But anyone who did got torched. So, Rodman getting isolated is a huge problem if she's on her game, because if you step to her too aggressively, she beats you. If you drop off, she can pick a pass and she'll still get the ball back 20 yards down the field and she beats you. If you overcompensate, okay, and you shift and you send help, now Washington has numbers elsewhere. They can attack the space you just abandoned, especially without the KC midfield protecting that defensive line, and that's what was happening. It was just comical at times. So it's exactly the type of wide threat that stretches out a compact defense by making them react instead of anticipate. And the first goal showed it, okay, because that was a Rodman pinpoint cross after she had just torched the wide players. And Santos arriving a little bit late, not really late, but the defenders were facing their goal. Santos is there for a one-timer that ends up in the back of the net. Boom, boom, great goal, okay? It's not random, okay? This is an actual pattern, that you can see right there that anyone can see. The width creates the angle. The movement, he basically creates the angle. Movement links the box players up together, and then, that execution, if Santos doesn't get it, maybe it's a different game, but she finishes the chance and you're down 1-0, and that was a really good-looking goal. So Santos deserves a lot of credit here, okay? Because 2 goals from midfield right now is huge for her. She has not played her best this season yet, and she's been a floater at times and next to useless, and she was on the mark all game last night when she was playing. So so it's not just about the goals, though. It's about the timing of the runs, and that's what looked much better from Washington's midfield, okay? And Santos was arriving in the right places at the right time. She had 2 goals. She potentially could have had 3 or 4. Some get blocked. You're not going to get them all, but she was in the right place. And that's what was making Washington very, very dangerous. So it's not only their individual talent, but their talent was actually combining with good timing, good decisions, good anticipation, and that's not been the case. And you're doing it against a KC team that's the Shield champions last year. So, like, for example, Hirschfeld finds, Sophia Cantore. Cantore gets up on the right side, and Santos is there again to finish. And that's the 3rd goal right there, okay? Washington's wide threat still in full force. Kansas City scrambling. Spirit runners arriving. Finish 3-0. Game basically over right there. And then this was great to see because Claudia Martínez gets the 4th. That's her first goal in the league since she's been signed to the Spirit. And it also shows that Washington's not going to sit back and coast. They kept attacking. Why not? You're in front of your home friends. Raucous Audi, rowdy Audi on a Friday night. It's basically a sellout. So they kept attacking. They kept finding that space. They found finding lots of joy in that space. They just were trying to punish KC along the way, and KC had lost the plot long before that. And again, for Martinez to get that freaking first goal, that's a great thing off her back. Her confidence will grow. But for Kansas City, that's another question, because where's the defensive resistance? Okay, where is the compactness there? Where are you seeing leadership to say, okay, no more, and we're getting one for us type of thing, because we may not win this, but we're not quitting, and they had no answers. And that's the part that would worry me if I'm a Kansas City fan, though, actually, because losing happens, bad games happen, but a 4-0 loss, or 4-0 losses in general, where the opponent looks way more organized, more aggressive, more connected and more confident, that's a bigger issue, especially for the shield holders. Okay. Um, to be fair, I mean, Kansas City did have moments, but it wasn't working out for them. Bethune got blocked on a 1v1 with the keeper, stuffed on that. Shawinga has moments, but she looked like she could break the game open, but she didn't actually look herself either. And Sentnor did hit the crossbar late on a free kick, if I'm remembering right. And early in the game, about 140 in, Cooper should have done better when she had the ball in the box for cross, and somehow she Shankopotamus styled it over the top of the net. It just landed on there. So they had flashes, but they never controlled the game. Washington actually looked like they had a plan to pick on certain people for once, okay, like a plan to defeat this team. And they should do that every single week against whoever they're playing, even if it's the bottom team. They don't always look like they have a specific plan for the team they're facing. And that kind of annoys me at times. But anyway, their plan, and it was executed, and that's the difference. What else do we have here? So, they got a clean sheet against KC, and that's huge. So that's 2 clean sheets in a way, which is going to help McKeever keep gaining confidence, because Sandy's still chucking balls to nobody sometimes out of the back that can end poorly for you. But she did make a few big saves when she needed to, especially the one we've won with Bethune. And let's see. Anyway, she did what she's supposed to do. She got the one she was supposed to, and maybe one she wasn't supposed to, and that's all you can ask. Let's see. What else do we have? The back line I thought was pretty damn good that last night. Okay, Rudd and Morgan, Wiesner, and everyone else, they had to manage the speed and the transition and late pressure from KC. And they did it. They're coming away with a clean sheet, and that's everyone helps your confidence when that happens. So that's how you turn a strong attacking performance, though, into a complete team performance, and they got that done. Because 4-2 is entertaining, but not if you're the spirit in that stuff. You want that shutout. 4-0 is a message to the league. So what does this mean for the Washington Spirit? Well, this is the kind of win that can basically reset perception of where they were headed, because I was pretty critical of them, at the break, for sure. And it's a performance that really says that we can press successfully and organized. We can attack wide, we can finish, and we can defend. And that's the contender behavior that you definitely want from a team like the Spirit. So it's too early to crown anyone champions of this sport off of one game in April, but they do look organized and they look dangerous again, and that's going to give them some confidence as well that they've been lacking. But more importantly, I didn't see frustration in their eyes. They look jacked to play this game. For the Kansas City Current, the questions are going to get louder, okay? The pressure on Armas is going to grow, especially if they don't start ripping off some wins. But I guarantee you, if they lose 1 or 2 more and they're not competitive or not looking like themselves, questions will be asked of Armas if he's the right man for this job. And because when you have players like Shawinga and Sentnor and Dabinia and Bethune, etc., you should be terrifying going forward. And and Cooper, of course. But talent does not fix spacing issues, and talent alone does not help your defensive structure. Talent alone does not help your transition. Protect how to fix the transition protection parts. And right now, Kansas City are just giving up too much of everything out there on the field. They're too open. They're too easy to stretch. And if they do not clean that up, I really don't see them winning a lot of games like they used to. And they can't manage them. So last year, when they were off, they could win games. And against Washington, they couldn't do anything. So my final thought really is Washington Spirit did not just win this game. They gave the league a little bit of a message that, hey, we're back on track, so look out for us coming forward. In Kansas City, they need to find those answers fast before people start losing jobs. But regardless of what the plan is, they still have talent that didn't look like they were communicating with each other. So fix that. Maybe that's part of the problem. But they faced a tactical beatdown, and if they do not fix their structure, okay, they can't fix it with words of we're getting their potential, we're big picture. It needs to happen now, okay, as we approach 1/4 of the season in the next couple of weeks, because the talent is not going to be enough if they don't fix their structure. Plain and simple. See you in the next video.